You are listening to the Archive of the Small Throne. I am the Archivist. This is entry 447. Classification: holoactive. Threat posture: ambient. The record concerns the village of Varn, its single well, and the thing that was always breathing beneath both. I have told this account to no one who asked for it, only to those who needed it. If you are hearing this on a Tuesday, I advise you to pause, resume tomorrow. The archive will wait. It has nothing but time. There is a sound that dead forests make when the wind passes through them. It is not the sound of life rustling. It is the sound of absence being confirmed. Branches that no longer bend. Bark that has forgotten sap. The wind moves through and finds nothing to negotiate with, so it simply reports the emptiness, faithfully, to anyone downstream. I have heard this sound 4 times in my tenure. The first was Varn. The village of Varn stopped breathing on a Tuesday. I use the word precisely. Not ended, not fell, stopped breathing, as though it had been breathing all along and simply chose, or was chosen, to cease. Varn was 200 souls arranged in a rough crescent around a single well. No church, no shrine, no temple of any denomination. This was not an act of defiance. The people of Varn were not godless by philosophy. They were godless by oversight. No one had ever thought to build one, the way no one thinks to label the air they breathe. The well was the center. Stone-lined, deep, old. Older than the village by several centuries, if the masonry is to be believed. And I believe masonry before I believe people. The water was clean, cold, tasted, according to the tax collector's notes, of chalk and something faintly sweet, like fruit left too long in a cellar. 200 people, one well, no anchor to anything above. And below, but I am getting ahead of the record. The first sign was the livestock. A farmer named Darren, I have his deposition, or what remains of it, watermarked and fading, reported that on a Monday evening, he found his goats standing in a single line, all facing northeast, toward the well. They were not grazing. They were not sleeping. They were simply standing, eyes open, bodies still, as though they were listening to something below the threshold of human hearing. He struck one on the flank. It did not react. He shouted. Nothing. He said, and I record his words without embellishment. They looked like they were waiting to be told to breathe again. By morning, the goats were normal, eating, wandering. Darren convinced himself it had been a trick of the evening light, but his neighbor's cattle had done the same thing. And the dogs in the village square had sat in a perfect row, muzzles pointed at the well, from dusk until dawn. None of them barked. The silence, the neighbors agreed, was the worst part. Not the stillness. The silence. On Tuesday, the first Tuesday, a woman named Elda drew water after nightfall. She reported nothing unusual about the water itself. But as she leaned over the lip of the well, she heard something rising from the dark below. Not a voice, not an echo, a breath, a single, long, slow inhale. The kind of breath a sleeping thing takes, vast lungs filling with patience rather than air. It lasted, by her estimate, 11 seconds. Then silence. Then, after a pause so long she thought she had imagined the first sound, another inhale. No exhale. That is the detail I return to. That is the detail that distinguishes entry 447 from lesser hauntings. Whatever breathed beneath Varn only ever breathed in. It took. It received. It drew air, or something shaped like air, downward. But it never gave anything back. Elda dropped her bucket and ran. In the morning, the bucket was sitting neatly on the well's edge, dry, upright, as though someone, or something, had placed it there with care. I pause the narrative here to note a cross-reference. The archive contains 3 prior entries involving what I have classified as respiration phenomena. Entry 203, the Kethwell subsidence, in which a coastal hamlet reported rhythmic air displacement from a collapsed cellar for 9 years before the hamlet emptied. Entry 311, the inhalation at Draymarsh, in which a marshland chapel sank 2 inches every Tuesday for 40 weeks before vanishing entirely into the peat. And entry 402, the breathing floor of Saltcombe, in which the stone floor of a granary rose and fell, minutely, almost imperceptibly, in a rhythm matching no known tidal or seismic pattern. All 4 sites share 3 characteristics: a single point of depth, an absence of spiritual architecture, and a preference for Tuesdays. I do not know what Tuesdays mean to the Hollows, but the Hollows know what Tuesdays mean to themselves, and that asymmetry of knowledge is, I have learned, where danger lives. By the 2nd Tuesday, the breathing from the well had become a communal secret, the kind of secret that 200 people keep not by agreement, but by shared reluctance to be the one who names it aloud. And here is where the record turns. People began holding their breath, not deliberately, not consciously at first. A woman would be kneading dough and realize she had not inhaled for 30 seconds. A child would stop mid-sentence, mouth open, lungs paused, eyes distant. A man would wake in the night to find his wife lying beside him, perfectly still, chest unmoving, eyes open and fixed on the ceiling. And then she would gasp, suddenly, as though surfacing from deep water, and say she had been dreaming of nothing at all. They were breathing in sympathy with the well, or rather, they were failing to breathe in sympathy with the well. The hollow inhaled, and they, without understanding why, held their breath to make room for it, as though there were only so much air in Varn, and the thing below had priority. I have catalogued this phenomenon as sympathetic apnea. It is not a medical term. No physician would recognize it. But the archive is not a hospital. It is a record of what happens when the world is more honest than medicine allows. On the 3rd Tuesday, the final Tuesday, a man named Cor tied a rope to the well's crossbeam and lowered himself into the dark. He was not brave. The depositions from those who knew him describe a quiet man, a farrier by trade, unmarried, prone to long silences even before the well began its work. I think he went down not because he wanted to confront what was below, but because the silence inside him had grown large enough to match it. He carried a lantern. The rope was 50 feet. The well, according to the original survey, was 42 feet to water. He descended. Those who watched, 7 villagers standing at the well's edge in the blue dark of early evening, said the lantern light grew smaller, and then, at what should have been the water line, it did not reflect. It simply continued downward, shrinking, as though the well had no floor. Cor called up once. He said, "There is no water." Then, after a long pause, "There is a rhythm." Then the rope went slack. Not cut, not pulled. Slack, as though whatever had been at the end of it had simply become lighter than the rope could measure. There is no water. There is a rhythm. I have turned Cor's words over in my mind for longer than I should admit. The well was dug for water and found it. For generations it provided, clean, cold, faintly sweet. But beneath the water, or perhaps the water was never water, perhaps it was only what the hollow allowed them to believe they were drinking, there was something older, a rhythm, not a heartbeat. I want to be precise. Not a heartbeat, because a heartbeat implies an organ, a body, a creature with boundaries. This was a rhythm the way a tide is a rhythm. The way the expansion and contraction of stone over centuries is a rhythm. Something geological in scale, but biological in feel. A respiration so deep and so slow that the village of Varn had been built, populated, and sustained entirely within the span of a single breath. Kor found the rhythm because the rhythm allowed itself to be found. It had, I believe, been ready for some time. It had been inhaling for 200 years, drawing the village into itself the way a breath draws air, slowly, invisibly, until the lungs are full. And when the lungs are full, one must do something with the air. By dawn on Wednesday, Varn was empty. Not destroyed. Empty. Doors were closed, but not locked. Fires had burned to ash in their hearths. Beds were pressed with the shapes of bodies that were no longer in them. Food sat on tables, half-eaten. A child's shoe lay in the middle of the village square, upright, as though its owner had simply continued walking without it and not noticed the loss. No bodies, no blood, no tracks leading away from the village in any direction. The tax collector who arrived the following Monday, a man of meticulous and unimaginative habits, which makes his account reliable, reported that the well was dry, not depleted, dry, as though it had never contained water. The stones at its bottom were warm to the touch, and the air above it, he noted, moved downward in a faint but steady current, as though something far below was still breathing in. He left before nightfall. He was, I have noted, a man who understood the value of not asking questions he could not survive the answers to. Every entry in this archive corresponds to a question humanity was afraid to ask. Entry 447 answers this one. What if we are not the permanent thing? The hollow that breathes is not a predator. It does not hunt. It does not hunger in any way we would recognize as appetite. It is simply older and more patient than anything built above it, and its rhythm, its vast geological respiration, operates on a timescale that renders human settlement into something like condensation on a window. Temporary, incidental. The hollow does not consume the people of Varn. It resumes. It breathes in, and the exhalation takes 2 centuries. And during that exhalation, something like water fills a well, and something like a village grows around it. And then the breath reverses. And the village, which was never permanent, which was only ever the shape of an exhale, is drawn back in. The emotion this maps to is not fear. It is the quiet, corrosive suspicion that we do not matter to the places we live, that the ground tolerates us the way a sleeping body tolerates a fly on its skin, without awareness, without opinion, and without the slightest inconvenience when we are gone. The archive marks Varn as hollow active. The classification is permanent. There will be no expedition. There will be no rescue, because there is no one to rescue and nowhere to bring them back from. The hollow is not a door. It is not a passage to some other place where 200 souls continue their lives in altered form. It is a breath, and you do not rescue air from lungs. I am aware of what this judgment says about the archive, that we observe, that we record, that we warn, and that we do not save. This is true. The archive is not a church. It offers no salvation. It offers only the record, and the record offers only this. Do not build above a breathing place. Do not drink from a well older than your oldest story. And do not visit Varn on a Tuesday. The hollow will exhale again in time. Something will grow there. Something will drink from a well that should not exist and find the water clean and cold and faintly sweet. And in 200 years, on a Tuesday, the breath will reverse. A final note. Since the filing of this entry, the archive has identified a 5th breathing site. It is not in a field. It is not beneath a village. It is beneath a city, a living city. Population, 40,000. One central reservoir. No structure of worship within a half-mile radius of the water source. The rhythm has been measured. It is accelerating. I have submitted a formal warning to the authorities. They have acknowledged receipt, They have not responded. The archive remains open.